Mockingjay. What can be said about this final installment of the Hunger Games series? I went on this journey about a few months ago, and when I started this journey, I thought the Hunger Games was basically a reskinned Twilight, but for dystopian lovers, you know? And here we are, 3 books later and 3 movies later, as well as the Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It's been a long road, it's been a long journey, and this one in particular, Mockingjay in particular has been probably the hardest in general to wrap my brain around. It's not that I didn't like it. We're gonna talk about it and everything that I kind of feel. I tried to script this as well as I did my Catching Fire video right here, probably like right here, or my first one on the first Hunger Games, where those were kind of easier to gather my thoughts around, but this one in particular has been probably the hardest. So we're shooting from the hip. I'm just going to talk about all the things that I noticed, the things that I liked, the things that I didn't like, just in general about Mockingjay, both the book and the movie. This is just kind of my discovering the Hunger Games series and talking about each one as its own video. So here we go for the final time, probably, on this channel. Let's talk about the Hunger Games, particularly the last one, the third in the trilogy. Let's talk about Suzanne Collins's third work in the final in the Hunger Games series, Mockingjay. Without any further ado, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, and roll the intro. Now, where do we begin? With Mockingjay, I think it's only fair that the only place to start is at the beginning of this story. And part of where we start this story is where we left off in Catching Fire. And if you don't know, spoilers ahead, spoilers are going to be galore. This is more of a series for the people that have already been a part of the Hunger Games fandom, and me kind of being a newbie to the space. Hi. I don't know what district I am yet. I haven't taken any quizzes, but I will in the meantime. And yeah, there's my result. Don't know what it is, but we'll find out later as I'm editing this. But let's start where we left off in Catching Fire, which was with Katniss shooting an arrow into the top of the arena in Catching Fire of the second quarter quell. It breaks, they follow Beetie's plan, and she is seemingly like knocked out. There's debris falling everywhere. It's fucking chaos. The Capitol's going fucking berserk unbeknownst to her, and she completely passes out. Now, this is where we lead into the start of Mockingjay. Our girl Katniss wakes up in a hospital bed, and she wakes up and she finds out that District 12 is no more. As soon as she did the arrow into the arena and the ceiling started going, batshit crazy because it was really just a screen, I assume, for like the dome of the arena. As soon as that happened, President Snow had ordered an airstrike on District 12, where Gale, we'll get to Gale, but Gale tells Katniss all about this and how he was able to save quite a few people from District 12, but not nearly as many that were unfortunately taken out with the airstrikes. And they all end up in District 13, which previously we find out was kind of a legend in Panem. It's sort of a legend, but we find out it's real. It's a real place, and it's run by this woman named President Alma Coin. And everything is kind of gray, drab. They follow a very strict schedule, and Katniss is dealing with, of course, more PTSD from not only being in the arena a second time. She watched her friend Cinna basically get captured and beat the crap out of him, who was one of her best friends in the Capitol. He was her stylist. He's the one that made the Mockingjay basically symbology with her outfits and whatnot. Was just one of her favorite people there. and lost him, watched him get the crap beat out of him as she's on her way up through the glass elevator into the arena. So then she's just thrust into the arena, can't deal with even Cinna probably being dead, can't even deal with that, can't even deal, like, is just thrust into the arena, has to deal with, you know, being in the quarter quell. So, and then everything happening afterwards and just finding out that she's basically directly for the destruction of her home. She's going through it. She's only 17. I have to keep reminding myself that Katniss is only 17 and she's going through all this bullshit. And it's just gonna get worse, guys. It gets worse for her. It gets worse for our girl through here. And oh my god. Ooh, I just couldn't imagine the therapy. Poor Katniss. So she wakes up, she's told about District 12 being gone. She's now having to dealing with learning the life of how things are in 13, dealing with being a soldier and being trained to be the object of the revolution, the Mockingjay, which is how we get the name of everything. And even worse yet, Peeta and several other tributes have been captured by the Capitol and are now being used actively against Katniss and the rebellion as propaganda, where she is just worried, sick, out of her mind, and feeling guilty for the fact that Peeta is gone and is being used like this and is clearly just not having a good time in the Capitol right now, even though they try to make it look like that. She's dealing with all this crap going on, and behind the scenes, she is fighting with the idea of even choosing to be the Mockingjay or not. And the thing that pushes her to do it is when Peeta then later on, she sees him, he looks very sallow, very pale, very just gross, and everything happens in succession in this book. The action does not stop for a second. It's thing after thing after twist after twist after twist after twist after twist. And I think that was one of the things that kind of bothered me in this book and in the movie, because it just felt like we were going from one big scene to the next, and there wasn't really calmer moments, because even the moments that you would kind of consider to be calmer moments were always laced with this underlying danger and just friction, I guess I want to say. Or I think that's the best way I can describe it. It's just always there, always being something prickly feeling there, even in these moments that are quote-unquote calmer, so to speak. So she sees him, and he clearly does not look fed. It's been only a couple days since the last one, and he looked so much healthier. So she's wondering, like, oh my god, what are they doing to him? They must be torturing him. So she then, with some stipulations, like her sister being able to keep her cat, decides to agree to be their Mockingjay. In trying to make propaganda pieces, and it's not really going well, because Katniss can't act worth a lick, and Haymitch decides to put her... Well, he brings up the idea that they go to District 8 and do some kind of propaganda there with Katniss being in the field, because they all agree that Katniss is much better off and is much more of a spectacle and attention-grabbing as she is when she's in the moment of something, which I kind of agree with, because I can't act for shit either. I really can't. I don't think I can. I don't think I can act for shit, especially if I was going through everything that she was going through. I don't think I would even be able to think about anything else. So I totally understand where Katniss is coming from with this. She's like, just put me in the field. I'll be your Mockingjay. Like, put me in the frickin' field. Let's frickin' do this. And Haymitch is like, yeah, let's put her in the field. And she's like, yeah, I agree. Let's put me in the field. So they do that. They send her to District 8. And in District 8, there's a hospital full of just the sick people and those that have been injured in the war. She meets with the people, And there's another air raid, it turns out, because President Snow got a tip that Katniss was there filming propaganda pieces for the revolution. And so there's an air raid, and that's when we get the historic, iconic moment where she's like,
"And if we burn, you burn with us."
And that's when we get that iconic moment, is when she's standing in front of the burning hospital that the Capitol just airstriked, full of just innocent people, which is just absolutely horrific. And I'm sorry if I get events mixed up. I'm being pretty sure, because I watched the movie twice, so I might be getting some things mixed up, and I'm sorry for that. But like I said, it's one thing after another in both the book and the movie, is just fast-paced, scene after scene after scene after scene. So after the hospital is burning, Katniss really decides to throw herself into the revolution and to keep going and fighting in the very real fight. Like, doesn't want to keep making propaganda. She doesn't want to keep being on screen. She wants to keep actually doing shit and trying to get to Peeta as fast as possible, because as the weeks go on, Peeta just looks in even worse and worse condition. And even in the book, the scene where there's a certain part where Peeta in a live interview with Caesar Flickerman at the end tells Katniss and the other rebels on screen that there's going to be an attack on District 13 and that they'll all be dead by morning. So they all descend downward, and as the screen is cutting, when Peeta is, as he's saying it, they beat the crap out of him, and it's so much more detailed in the book. It's even said that, like, his blood splattered onto the lens of the camera that was filming him. It, like, falls over, and then they just see a blood splatter, and Katniss assumes that he's dead. She starts freaking out as they're descending the staircase. She can't find her sister. Turns out her sister went back for her fucking cat. And then she has to wait there and is panicking about her sister as the bombs are literally coming down. It's a mess. But Peeta is managed to save them, and she is just even more driven to get to Peeta, get to the Capitol, kill Snow, and that's exactly what she does later. She then eventually gets to the Capitol, is helped by Snow's cousin Tigress, who we see in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes much earlier in the timeline, is now hates the hell out of her cousin, wants him dead, wants to make sure that Katniss is gonna kill him, and so she hides them in the Capitol after they lose so many people, including Finnick, Boggs, other people in this book. Just death after death, death trap after death trap. The Capitol is literally a freaking Hunger Games death trap, and it is terrifying. There's like giant, like flooding, sentient, almost fucking goo. There's like reptilian, freaking like humanoid monsters in the sewers. It's awful. It is awful when they get to the Capitol. And Katniss freaking lies and says that she was ordered to kill Snow, but everybody kind of knows and goes with it anyway, so they can just get this shit over with. Whoo, buddy. It's just action after action after action after action. It was a very fast-paced adventure, let me tell you. It was just trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. And at the end, Katniss is able to have the opportunity to kill Snow. But she realizes over time that Almacoin is just on the same as the how's the saying go? Is the other side of the coin, so to speak, for President Snow. She's just like President Snow, if not worse, and is planning on having another Hunger Games when she becomes president, which Katniss decides cannot happen, and so she agrees to it So she has the opportunity to kill Snow. They sit down in a room with the remaining tributes. The war's over. Peeta is fine. They brainwashed the hell out of him. They rescue Peeta later on. They brainwash him. They give him to the rebels. Ugh. A lot happens. Like I said, I was gonna get things mixed up, but a lot happens in this book. They basically like brainwash Peeta. They turn him into a sentient, just killing machine, hell-bent on destroying Katniss using Tracker Jacker venom, which we seen in the first Hunger Games, that made them hallucinate and stuff. The bees that like made them hallucinate, the venom from those things, but kicked up to 11 and just injected into his veins as they're just blasting him with pictures and videos of Katniss. Just very MK Ultra disgusting, crazy governmental experimental bullshit that just really, I'm sure, fucked Peeta up as well. Anyway, we get to this room full of the tributes, which most of the tributes got murdered in the process. There was like 40 some tributes and only like 8 survive. Like the whole reason why Katniss decided to go in the Hunger Games in the first place and this whole ball started rolling, her sister gets killed by one of Gale's. Gale. We'll get to you, Gale. We'll get to you. We'll get to Gale. Trust me. We'll get there. I'm trying to speed up this explanation as much as possible, but we get there. They're all sitting around. Elma's like, why don't we have another Hunger Games but with the Capitol's children? And Katniss is like, yeah, but I get to kill Snow. So that's how she's able to then get to Coin, and instead of shooting Snow, she shoots Coin, and the people basically break the barriers. A giant mob just comes and just destroys Coriolanus Snow as well. And in the end, Katniss is sent back to 12. Her mom fucking abandons her. After all this, her mom just stays behind or goes to another district or something. She just doesn't go back to 12 with her extremely traumatized teenage daughter that just literally lived through being a major focus in a fucking war. Just leaves her daughter. Just doesn't even give a shit. Just doesn't even care. Katniss's mom is literally the fucking worst. Literally the worst. How would you do that to your own child? Greasy Say, the old lady from District 12, survived all of this, and she's the first to show up for Katniss once Katniss is back in District 12, and the whole Victor's row of houses survived because it was kind of offset from the rest of the District 12 village, so to speak. So they only bombed the village. They didn't bomb the Victor's area of houses. So she's still living in the house that she was given after the first Hunger Games. And Gracie Say, the old lady that would serve her food on the black market, is the first to show up, not her mom. Shows up, is taking care of Katniss when Katniss is literally dealing with pretty much shell shock. Just dealing with shock and just the immediate aftermath of war. And that's the person that first shows up for her, is Greasy Say. Shows up, is cleaning her, is just kind of taking care of Katniss until she starts to kind of come out of it a little bit more, so to speak. Like, as someone with PTSD, I understand the early days after trauma. It ain't easy. It's like everything is just... it's there, but it's not there. You're not there. Like, you're understanding what everything around you, but it's like you can't talk. It's like you're just in this close bubble and everything else is happening around you, kind of, I want to say. At least that's how I experience it. So, yeah, Katniss is dealing with that. And then Peeta shows up, planting primroses in honor of Katniss's sister. They get together in the end and they have a couple kids, and Katniss and Peeta are both able to heal from their trauma a little bit together and are seemingly happy in the end, which is controversial. Now that I'm done describing Mockingjay as roughly as I could, like, It was just very hard. It was just very hard to really, it was a lot of information, honestly. Like I said, I think the biggest problem with this story was everything just happening so fast in succession. Because, like, let's take the first book as compared to this one. The first book, we don't even really get to the games until halfway through. We really don't. And it seems like even in this one, in moments where we're sitting down and talking to people, a lot of stuff is, like, a lot of big things are being talked about, like bombings and just people that she knows dying. Like, her makeup team was captured by 13 and was basically being tortured over taking an extra piece of bread, and she has to still have these people work on her makeup after getting them out of there and taking them to her mom in the hospital wing, and her sister dying. Like, just everything. There's so many people that die in this book, which I understand is, like, the true nature of war. And Suzanne portrays it very, very fucking well. It does feel very overwhelming, and, like, just everything is happening at once, and things are seemingly getting worse all the time before they're eventually better, so to speak, after war. Which I think is done well with the ending, because people do feel unsatisfied after war. Like I said, Suzanne does a very good job at writing this, but it just was a little too overwhelming, because even after I was done reading it, I sat there, like, thinking about the story, and even immediately after reading and watching the movies twice, it felt like I still didn't have a full grasp on just everything that happened, or a particular moment that stuck out to me, because everything was so cinematic, explosive. There's that one moment where Finnick is spilling all of Snow's secrets, and he's explaining how after you win the Hunger Games, you don't exactly win if you're just considered attractive to the capital citizens. And so Snow would arrange meetings without Finnick's consent to do things with capital citizens that paid well behind closed doors, if you know what I mean. I don't know a current reference for this, so I'm gonna go with the reference that I know, which is a movie with Julia Roberts called Pretty Woman. The job that she starts out with, they basically do that with the other with the victors that are considered desirable. And there's even rumors that even contestants such as, like, Enobaria had her mouth, all her teeth sharpened, not only to showcase the brutality of how she won her games, but also to make her quote unquote undesirable for that outcome after winning. It's very dark, it's very explosive, it's very fast, it's very good at describing what war and the pain and the anguish and the confusion and the way that Katniss kind of deals with her PTSD feels very, very close to home, kind of, in a way, in some parts. Like I said, the feeling of just being shell-shocked, and, like, she doesn't really register Greasy Say. Like, she knows Greasy Say is there and sees her and everything, but, like, there's just an invisible wall there, and you're very exhausted, so you're just kind of going through the motions, so to speak. Everything feels like it has no noise and motion blur, kind of. Those kind of moments of description were very well done. I think Suzanne did another good job of writing this. She did a good job of writing it. And I don't have really any opinions. Our girl Katniss is always great, although she can be an unreliable narrator sometimes. Gale, let's finally just get to Gale. This video's all over the fucking place anyway. let's get to Gale. Gale, piece of shit. The way this man would act, like I said, all these crazy, horrific things are happening to Katniss, and the whole time she's worrying over Peeta, Gale's like pining after her and saying the most passive-aggressive ass shit like ever. Is saying the most passive-aggressive ass shit. I could not believe Gale's audacity sometimes. There's bigger problems in the world than Katniss not loving you like a girlfriend, Gale. There's more things happening. You've witnessed it. You watched like 12,000 people get blown to bits, my dude. There's more to worry about in the world than Katniss loving Peeta and being worried for him. Like, there's a moment where he gets hurt and he's like lying on a table or they go into Katniss's house in the Capitol. When they're house in District 12, when they're visiting District 12, there's this moment where they're both in the house, and he's like, "This is where you kissed me," and she's like, "I didn't know you were awake for that. I thought you were gonna die," and he's like, "I knew you would have come though, and would have kissed me," and she's like, "What?" And he's like, "You would only love me if I was in pain. That's why if Peeta doesn't get out of the Capitol, I'll never have a chance," or something like that, or to that effect. I'm like, there's more to worry about. What the hell, my guy? What's wrong with you, Gale? Seriously. I could not believe some of the things this man would say in these moments. Like, the world is fucking ending. The worst thing that you have on your mind is whether Katniss wants you to be her boyfriend or not? What? Bro, get a grip. Gale, get a fucking grip. Also, the way that I'm not gonna say he's the Prim Reaper. He probably is. Like, let's be honest, he probably was the one that designed those bombs that killed Prim. It was his MO. It was very described to him. It was very described in the book. I don't think Suzanne would have included Gale describing what his bomb does if it didn't have any impact on the story later. I think that was a nod to what was going to happen later. I do think those were Gale's bombs. But did he press the button? Maybe. He might have. But he definitely was the one to design the bomb that killed Prim. And for that reason, I really don't like him. He wanted to make a bomb that had a delay, like a 2-bomb system that would bomb and then be on a timer so people had enough time to come in and try to help the injured from the first bomb, and then the next one would blow up. Like, that's just a sick and sadistic design in all things considered, and I would not want Gale to be with Katniss after the fucking war. Simply because of that mindset. Like, there's bigger things to worry about, and when he does think about war, he goes to these horrific, design lengths. It's just, don't like Gale. I don't like Gale. I didn't like Gale in the beginning. I still don't like Gale. I still don't like Gale. Ugh. That's enough about him. My boy Panem. Peeta I love Peeta. I'm not like an Everlark. I think I am an Everlark shipper. Definitely an Everlark shipper. But it's not because I didn't give Gale a chance. Like I said, this was my first time experiencing the Hunger Games. I'm not one of those people that have had the last 10 or so years plus to dissect this series over and over and over and over again. This is my first time watching and experiencing the Hunger Games as a whole. So, this is my opinion. If you don't like it, you can leave, or we can debate in the comments, and don't be rude. Okay? I'm willing to have a creative debate with people. I'm willing to have that debate. Tell me. Explain to me why you're Team Gale. Please, explain in the comments why you're Team Gale. Let's have a good discussion about it. And don't be mean. Let's not be those kind of fans. I think a lot of us, my demographic is like the 18 to 24 and up range. So, like, we're all mature adults here. Let's try to have mature conversations instead of going right to insults about people's opinions, alright? Thank you. And that's the tea. Peeta's great. Poor Peeta. Feel horrible for him. Feel horrible for literally everybody. Effie. I want to know what happened to Effie. What happens to my girl Effie Trinket? I love Effie with all my heart. I love the fact that they changed it in the movie. In the movie, they change it so Effie is there for her in District 13. So we get Effie scenes, but we really don't see Effie and Mockingjay at all. We really don't know what happens to her in the book. We don't know what happens to her or really anybody else. We know where a few people end up. We know Haymitch and Peeta and Katniss all end up living in their same houses, and in the few remaining houses in District 12, Katniss was basically exiled there because they were concerned about her mental state after the war, so they just sent her home, which I don't know how that would help her mental state. You sent her back to the place where there's a bunch of like 12,000 some corpses just hop and a skip away. How is that helping her mental state? Why didn't y'all like put her in a pasture or I just Anyway, Gale ends up like designing stuff in one of the other districts. Her mom ends up going to one of the other districts and settling down. We don't know what happens to Effie. We know that Panem becomes like a republic of sorts with a council, and they elect the district, I think 8, Commander Paylor, to be the new president of Panem, and is going to have a whole council of the leaders from the other districts to help her out. So things look good for the country of Panem towards the end, and Katniss and Peeta seem to have healed enough to move on and have children, which is one thing Katniss says is like, if the world doesn't get better, I'm not having kids. I don't want kids unless we're gonna be bringing them into a much safer world. So the fact at the end, I understand the meaning behind what Suzanne wanted, and yes, I do agree, along with a lot of other fans, that this was kind of an abrupt ending to the series, where we have just a time jump at the end. I feel like the book really could have benefited from like a couple hundred extra pages, maybe just a little bit towards the end, or some way to smooth out the pacing, because it just felt so fast and just go. We don't really have time to process all these huge events that are happening, which I think is another reason why my recall of everything is so bad, where I can remember catching fire in the first one even months, if not it's being like a year since I read and watched the first one for the first time, and I can still recall the first one so much better as well as Catching Fire than I can with Mockingjay. And I feel like that is part of the problem with it. Why can't I remember everything more clearly? It's so weird. But I did still think it was a good book. I remember writing it down that it was a good book in the end. I just feel like all the issues that I said before, and I can't stress enough, is I think it just could have benefited from a little bit better pacing and more time to just calm down and have a little bit more kind of in between. But other than that, it's a great book. It's wonderfully written. A lot of the parts hit hard, especially when Katniss loses her sister. It's the whole reason why all this bullshit is happening in the first place, is because Primrose's name was drawn and Katniss volunteered, and that's how she ended up going to the Hunger Games and getting out of it, and having Snow not believing the whole lie with PETA that they love each other, and the reason why they were gonna do the berries at the end was so they could both survive and everything. It started everything, and when she loses her sister, the fight just goes the fuck out of her. She's done. And quite frankly, a lot of people I've heard in the conversations online, I've done my research into the fandom and stuff since then, is people are kind of mad that the fight goes out of Katniss then, but you listen to me. Listen to me. As someone that has been through a ton of horrific, unreal bullshit, as someone that's been through that kind of stuff, and if the reason why I went through so much trauma in the first place was to be destroyed or to be killed, like, if the reason why I went through so much shit just died, or the object that kept me going, the reason why I was doing so much and keeping myself going was to be destroyed in any way, I would give the fuck up too, bitch. I would walk out into gunfire. I would be so done. I would be over it. I would be done. Or I would go off and yell at all these people. I would set up like live, if I was Katniss, I would have set up live television, told everybody the fuck off, and just walked out into cannon fire. I would be so done. I would just be a zombie and just be like, well, drop my gun, just be a zombie and walk out. I wouldn't care anymore. I would not give a single shit. I would be done. I would be so done. I would be so done. If every last person I cared about died and the last one died, just done, I would join them. I would be gone. No regrets. No regrets. I'm sorry, unpopular opinion, but with as much crap as I've been through, if all the people I care about now were to die, I wouldn't have no hope left in me either, okay? I understand Katniss, so don't be saying that, okay? I understand her. Like, I don't really have much more to say. I think this book was good, the movie was good, the cinematics were just completely spectacular and cinematic and so Hollywood. I think that the first two are definitely better. I think it goes in the order of like, this was good, and then the sequel follows up with it just being a complete banger, top of the charts, definitely the best of the series, and then Mockingjay just goes, eh. Like, it's good, there's really good parts, and it's all very well written. I just... it wasn't my favorite in the series, and I think that looking back on the Hunger Games, this has been a really fun deep dive. This has been a really fun just diving into a completely new fandom that has had a little bit of a resurgence recently with the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I think that now my opinions personally on the Hunger Games have changed. I think it's a very, very well done, very well written, very real almost look at the world today. It's very dystopian. Suzanne Collins even said that she got the idea for the Hunger Games from flicking through TV, where it would be a talk show program and then stuff about the Iraq War, and then she'd flip the channel again and it would be like Wipeout or some kind of like Deal or No Deal or a crime drama, and then she'd flip the TV again and it would be something about war or some other horrific event, and she would flip it again and it would be some kind of other like happier media, and how dystopian it felt to her. So it was very based on what was going on currently in the very real world and bringing that into a dystopian trilogy for teenagers. And I feel like she really achieved that. It felt very, very real, and it felt very good. I think at the end it's a good enough ending. I think Katniss having kids is her saying that the world is healed enough and is going in a good enough direction that she felt safe enough to bring children into the world. With no more Hunger Games, Snow's dead, Panem is having a complete governmental overhaul, and she knows and trusts Commander Paylor for the most part, so she really doesn't have to worry anymore and has kids with PETA. So I don't feel like it was a bad ending as much as the abruptness of it was. It was a very abrupt ending. And I feel like that is quite a bit of a hit to it as a whole. Is just how abrupt it is at the end. Like, we go from her shooting coin and the mob of people just swarming President Snow and all the chaos, and then it just, doop, we flip to this scene in a meadow that's much more healed, and she has 2 kids with PETA, and the movie ends. Like, it is quite abrupt, and I feel like it is kind of a detriment to it, but overall, I feel like The Hunger Games was definitely very misrepresented in the media, because all I really heard from the outside looking in was it being kind of like a Twilight dupe. Was just, are you Team Gale or Team PETA? It was very much pushing that kind of narrative, so I never really looked into it, and I feel like everybody should read this trilogy. I feel like it is very necessary to read it, quite frankly. If you're a young adult, like, it's a good series. Like, it was very fucking good. Especially Catching Fire. Catching Fire is so fucking good. Just love Catching Fire. The movie is, chef's kiss. I won't stop saying it. Catching Fire is probably the best in the series, and I have such a huge appreciation for Suzanne Collins as a writer, for The Hunger Games as a whole. That was my hand. But yeah, just a very good series overall, and I feel like my appreciation for it has greatly increased. My respect, my opinion is definitely much higher of it now, and I think I am a Hunger Games fan now. I've been participating in watching fan debates online on like TikTok and Twitter and Tumblr. Yes, I still have a Tumblr, but it's only for like fandom news and for the fandoms I'm interested in. So yeah, I don't really make posts. I just kind of scroll on Tumblr these days. I don't even post anymore. But I have followed quite a few creators on Tumblr and X and TikTok that make Hunger Games content primarily. So yeah, it's been a very fun ride to dive into a completely new fandom, understand the people, understand the culture, so to speak. I consider fandoms like these little worlds with like just like in kind of like, this is gonna be so nerdy, but like Kingdom Hearts, where you go to the worlds in your gummy ship and you kind of come in and you learn how everything works and how the people are in the world and like what their kind of vibe is, what they're about, you know, like what's the hot debates and whatnot in this little circle world here. So taking a trip to the Hunger Games world of Panem has been a journey. It's been incredible, and I have such a love for this series overall, and I can't wait to figure out what my next little gummy ship journey into fandoms, where the next world will be. Who knows where the inspiration will strike. So yeah, this has been a fun little deep dive. This video has gone kind of longer than I expected, and I know not many people will watch it, so if you got here all the way to the ending, I don't know, put like a pizza emoji. I don't know. Put like a pizza emoji. Actually, put like, is there a bow and arrow emoji or something to do with like bows and arrows? Put like a pizza or a bow and arrow at the end. If in a comment if you got all the way to the end of this video. And if you're new here and you got to the end of this video, hi, my name's Randomness. I don't just talk about this kind of stuff. I also do books, movies, TV shows, and whatever else I want to talk about. Talk about some drama a little bit, do gaming content. I'm a gamer, doing more gaming content as I have started doing it just recently, so it's going to be another journey that we're going on, is making gaming content as well on the channel. It's just me here, so things are few and far in between, but I do a whole bunch of stuff and I do whatever I want. So if you feel like jumping on the bandwagon here, click the subscribe. If you are a huge Hunger Games fan, let me know your experiences in the comments below. Good, bad, the ugly, your funny stories. Let me know. Other Hunger Games fans, let me know your experience in the fandom, what your how you got into it, like your experiences, just anything you want to talk about Hunger Games related. Let me know in the comments below. I think that's it. I give the Mockingjay movie a solid 7 out of 10, and I think I'm gonna give the book the same score. It wasn't good, wasn't bad, but it was very well written, so I can't really give it a 5 or a 6. And it was a good enough ending to this wonderful trilogy that I've quite enjoyed. So, yeah, I think that about sums it up. I love you all so, so much. And I hope you have the best day, and may the odds, for one more time, be ever in your favor. Bye!